This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Ash and Team Valor. Following Shadow's departure, Metal and Emerl sit for a time, as while they both know the logical thing to do is proactively seek out the last two shards of the broken Chaos Emerald, there is a simple pleasure to just being together, and after all the danger and turmoil, such simple pleasures are too precious to give up hastily. Looking up at the moon, Emerl asks his father what will happen to him once he is awakened, to which Metal replies that it will be his choice, as with the link broken, he will be able to do whatever he desires. He then suggests that perhaps Emerl might do as he did, and travel in search of a purpose, or else choose to settle somewhere and make it his home. Pensively, the beige bot queries what if he does not wish to do either of those things? What if he wants to keep doing what he has been, and stay with his father? Will he be able to do that when the link is broken? For a moment, Metal pauses, understanding the true question, and so laying a hand on Emerald's head, reassures him that just because this link will break, does not mean their bond will, stating the Gizoid will always have a place by his side, and that he will always do everything in his power to protect him. At these words, a smile makes its way into Emerald's voice, as he informs his father that if this is the case, then he would like to stay with him forever, a request the blue bot is all too happy to grant. Eventually, the sun begins to rise, and with it so do Metal and Emerl, with both scanning for the final two Chaos Emerald shards. To their surprise, it seems that both are together, though more intriguingly, they are in the exact place where the pair met, that Eggman facility in Night Babylon. Were Metal more of a poet, he might have considered this thematic, that their link would end where it began, creating a full circle, though instead he simply warns Emerl to be wary, as they will be going right into the heart of Eggman's territory, meaning there will almost certainly be dangers awaiting them. Nodding his understanding, Emerl takes a brief fighting stance to show that he is ready. Then, as his dad takes flight, he does likewise, soaring back towards Central City's nightlife district. In the light of day, it is a rather deserted place, though this is to their favor, as if the Doctor has laid a trap for them, they would prefer that innocent bystanders are not caught up in it. However, as they approach the building shaped like Eggman's face, they find no impediment, save for the locked door, which they are easily able to remove thanks to Metal's time breaking down the crashed Death Egg. Stepping inside, they find the place much like they had left it, except that the alcove Emerl once occupied is now filled by the recently repaired Gamma ripoff, with something shining in his chest cavity, the two missing Emerald shards. Knowing they need to retrieve these, Metal and Emerl descend stealthily as they make their way towards the fake Gamma, though unfortunately, here is where the trap is sprung, as the moment the duo come into view, the red robot activates, stepping forth and declaring in his modulated voice that they have saved him the trouble of hunting them down, as now that he possesses two Chaos Emerald shards, he will destroy them and assemble all 7 emeralds inside himself, truly making him the ultimate android, Chaos Gamma. Briefly, Metal muses this version is far more verbose and prone to delusions of grandeur than his predecessor, but no matter, since he, Metal, will promptly defeat this so-called Chaos Gamma, both for Emerald's sake and to bring an end to the dishonor he presents to the real Gamma's memory. However, it seems that he will not be fighting alone, as taking his place at his father's side, Emerl declares his intent to protect his dad this time, and from the look in his eyes, Metal believes him. As one, the duo then rush at Chaos Gamma, with Emerl going high, attempting a flying kick to his face, while Metal spin dashes the E-Series feet, hoping to topple him like Omega and end this quickly. Unfortunately, this is not to be, as having fought the heroic androids previously, as well as possessing plenty of battle data on Metal, courtesy of Eggman, the faux Gamma has no problem countering both these moves by shifting into drive mode. This causes Emerl to go soaring over his head, while Metal is forced to contend with what is ostensibly a speeding tank that slams into him, sending him rolling backwards. Seizing this opportunity to land a decisive blow, Chaos Gamma then summons his drills once more and rushes Metal, though before he can make contact, something appears between them, Emerl, now manifesting a black shield of his own. Pride swells in Metal at this sight. Though knowing Emerl cannot hold this forever, he leaps over the top of the diamond-shaped shield and drives a kick into the top of Chaos Gamma's head. Recoiling in pain, the red robot hastily reverts back to his standing configuration so that he may use his grenades. Though perfectly following up from his father's last move, Emerl springs into action and launches a Chaos Spear right into the barrel of the launcher, with it promptly blowing up and dealing further damage to the red robot. Furiously, Chaos Gamma demands to know how he is losing when he is the ultimate E-Series model, imbued with 2 Chaos Emerald fragments. Though calmly, Metal informs him that he is the same fatal flaw as their maker. He fails to understand that when two entities, be they machine or organic, form a bond of mutual trust and respect, they can surpass any individual, no matter what abilities they have, which is a lesson he learned from the real Gamma. The blue bot then takes flight once more, telling Emerl to follow his lead, and as the pair rise into the air, he explains his plan, a double-strength homing attack, in which Metal will spin dash into Emerl, allowing him to strike Chaos Gamma with twice the force of a normal attack, with this hopefully being enough to take him down like it did the Eggmobile during the battle aboard the Death Egg. Understanding the logic of this, Emerl begins to spin, and so carrying out his part of the plan, Metal launches himself at the beige bot, causing him to go rocketing forward at an incredible pace, and pass cleanly through Chaos Gamma. Touching down, Metal watches as Emerl rises to his feet and faces the critically damaged E-Series, though instead of dispatching him, he holds out a hand to steady his foe, stating that it's not too late, and that he does not have to be the Doctor's weapon. His dad is proof of that. He can still join them in bringing hope to humanity. They just need the Chaos Emerald fragments inside of him. For a moment, blue eyes look into green, and green into blue, with neither android saying a word. Then, in his mechanical voice, Chaos Gamma states that unlike the Gizoid, he is no traitor, as his arms clamp tight around Emerald's smaller torso. At once, the sound of the E-Series self-destruct sequence initiating fills the room, a clear testament to the Faker's spiteful personality, as if he must lose, he will at least ensure that his nemesis goes out with him, or at least, that is his plan, before a bullet to his central processing unit takes him offline permanently, and stops the self-destruct sequence in its tracks. Looking around, Emerl sees his father, his right hand having morphed into the real Gamma's gun arm, though that is not the only change, as in his green eyes burn a fiery fury that had not been there before. Glare still set on his face as he returns his arm to normal, Metal then speaks, though it is not to Emerl, but rather to the now deceased Chaos Gamma, as he hisses in a low voice that no one threatens his son. Bending down, the blue bot then extracts the last 2 emerald shards from the red robot's chest, and places them alongside the 3 they had acquired from their fight with the Phys, with the pieces all suddenly knitting back together to create a whole and undamaged Chaos Emerald. Wordlessly, Emerl then picks the final emerald up, and as he absorbs it like all the rest, Metal speaks, a deep solemnity to his tone, as he utters the passphrase that will set the Gizoid free. Bring hope to humanity. Briefly, a flash of bright light fills the room, before fading just as quickly as it appeared, leaving just Metal and Emerl alone. Curiosity and concern to his tone, Metal asks how his son feels, with the beige bot replying that he does not feel any different if truth be told. Perhaps a little more powerful, but at his core he is still himself. He does not wish to destroy anything as Shadow had feared, nor does he wish to hurt anyone. He just wants to live in peace, and continue learning about this world alongside his father. Smile forming in his tone, Metal congratulates Emerl on his awakening. Though before he can say more, such as discussing where they might go from here, another voice cuts in, agreeing with Metal that the beige bot did magnificently. Dr. Eggman. Floating into view aboard his Eggmobile, Eggman leers down at Emerl, musing that this is what the Gizoid looks like at full power. Not what he expected, though he is sure he will be able to make use of it all the same. Aya sparking to life once again, Metal declares that he won't let the Doctor lay a finger on his son. Though chuckling malevolently, Eggman states that his creation shouldn't be so distrustful of him, since if he is the Gizoid's father, then that would make him, Eggman, his grandfather, and it is past time they did a little grandfather-grandson bonding. Fury only growing with each passing word, Metal wastes no time in throwing himself at the Doctor, though this is just what Eggman wants, as he waits until the android is close to fire off a point-blank missile from his Eggmobile which sends Metal spiraling into a wall, before he crashes hard to the ground. Letting out a worried cry, Emerl rushes towards his dad, though this too is a trap, as suddenly the beige bot begins convulsing, as thousands of volts race up his body. Letting out a self-satisfied cackle, Eggman then sneers that this is his spiky rodent trap, which he designed specifically to immobilize Sonic and his friends, though it seems it will have another purpose, as it will keep the Gizoid still long enough for him to form a new link with it and bend it to his will. Coldly, Metal retorts that Emerald's already been awakened, so he'll never be anyone's slave ever again, though here Eggman tuts that this is where his creation is wrong. He let Metal awaken the Gizoid by sacrificing that worthless Gamma clone, so that it would break their link. That way, he could forge a fresh one through a showing of overwhelming power. It seems that the Doctor means this last part quite literally, as with the press of a button, the electricity coursing through Emerl quadruples, causing the beige bot to scream in pain, while Metal hastily clambers to his feet, his heart breaking at the sound. As the only one happy at this situation, Eggman jeers that he really must thank the blue bot, as despite his claims of reformation, he must still have some of the Metal Commander in him, since he's just handed him the ultimate weapon for world domination on a silver platter. Once, these words would have destroyed Metal, playing into his worst fears and insecurities, but right now he has something far more important to focus on, and that is saving Emerl. He just needs to figure out how. By now, Emerl's shrieks have turned to sobs as he deliriously begs for his father to save him,
to make the pain stop.
While all around him, small jolts of electricity burst from the gaps in his plating, signaling that he is close to a complete overload. Furiously, Metal orders Eggman to shut the electricity down, stating that he'll kill Emerl otherwise, though in a tone of indifference, the mad scientist replies that perhaps he will, though as it stands, he has nothing to lose and everything to gain from this experiment's success, so he will not be stopping, even if it means the Gizoid's so-called life. Growing panic now as he watches Emerl's spasming get worse, Metal has to force himself to look at this problem logically, since that is the only way he can help his son, with him willing his logic to act as a proverbial circuit breaker in his more errant emotions. However, this also gives him an idea, with that being to serve as a literal circuit breaker, since as a fellow machine, if he were to take the electrical current into himself, he may be able to save Emerl. Even at the outset, Metal knows that this is a long shot, with his internal probability calculators indicating that it is likely this course of action will kill him, and perhaps still not be enough to spare his son. However, as this is the only option that presents a non-0% chance of Emerl surviving, he is willing to take that risk. Having not a second to spare, Metal takes off towards the convulsing figure of Emerl, dodging between discharges as the electricity shooting out of his son has grown exponentially. Furiously, Eggman demands to know what his creation thinks he's doing, though Metal pays this no heed, his eyes set squarely on his target. Then, as he comes to a stop in front of his son, he reaches out a hand and places it comfortingly atop his head, as he has done several times before. At once, the blue bot feels the electricity change course into him, and with it comes all the pain Emerl had been feeling. This is purest white-hot agony, and as it makes its way through his entire body and into his central processor, he is unable to maintain his usual stoicism, and so begins to scream. In the distance, Sonic sees and hears an explosion, the force of which causes the ground beneath him to rumble, despite being many miles away. Knowing the cause of this cannot be good, the blue blur takes off at a sprint, zooming between trees and rocks which morph into buildings and cars as he makes his way into the Night Babylon section of Central City. At once it is plain to see what has happened, as a massive crater is formed in the middle of the block, being almost a story deep, while all around it lie scorched and melted pieces of steel and concrete. However, this is not the most shocking part, as amidst the wreckage lies a figure Sonic knows well, Emerl. Rushing over to check on the little guy, the hedgehog finds him in a bad state, his metal casing having broken in several places, exposing scorched and disconnected wires. Even one of his large blue bug eyes is cracked, while his head hangs limp in a way that makes Sonic's breath catch in his throat for a moment. Cradling the Gizoid in his arms, Sonic gently pats his cheek, urging him to wake up and speak to him, though there is no response. Then, just as he is about to accept the grim news and start looking for anyone else caught in the blast, the light of Emerald's eyes come back online. Letting out an enormous sigh of relief, the blue blur admits that he had him worried there, before asking if he's alright, though in a weak voice which comes out slightly distorted due to his vocal modulator having sustained damage, Emerl replies with a question of his own. Where is his father? Laying the Gizoid down gently, Sonic rises to his feet to scan around for where Metalhead might be, figuring he was flung away by the blast. However, as his initial searches turn up nothing, his eyes drift further and further towards the center of the crater, until finally they spot the blue android, standing alone at ground zero. Zipping down to stand beside him, Sonic finds his doppelganger somehow in a worse state than Emerl, with it looking as though every single part of Metal has sustained critical damage. Broken wires hang limp from dozens of newly created holes in his body, while oil runs down him like blood, with it seeming as though the only reason he is still standing is because falling over would take more strength than his body has left. Looking justifiably worried, Sonic asks his rival what happened, though in a voice barely above a whisper, the android simply replies that he did his duty as a father. This is all Metal will say on the matter, as with a Herculean force of will, he takes a step, then another, and another, as he begins climbing his way out of the crater to check on Emerl. When the beige bot sees his dad, he clambers shakily to his feet and wraps him in a hug like Auntie Amy had shown him, and though at first Metal is a bit surprised, being unused to such displays of affection, he does not resist, instead placing one arm around his son to hold him tighter, while the other he rests comfortingly atop his head. The sun hangs low over Scrapnik Island as Mecha, Sigma, and Scrap emerge back onto the surface. Rebuilding has been slow, as the damage done by the invading egg fleet had been extensive. Nonetheless, they have made this place livable before, meaning they can do so again. The only reason they had stopped was due to their perimeter sensors indicating two objects had just passed into range and are now making their way towards the island. Fearing the return of Eggman, the trio of Scrapniks prepare themselves to fight if need be, though as the pair of black dots on the horizon begin to take shape, they recognize the one in the lead to be none other than Metal. Touching down on the beach, Metal with Emerl by his side begins making his way towards the trio, who do not speak as they watch the new arrivals inscrutably. This is fine by Metal, as it gives him a chance to speak, with him apologizing for what he did to the island and to all of them, as well as running away on the final fortress, rather than owning up to his mistakes. He knows that he cannot undo all of that, though if they'd let him, he'd like to try and make amends. At least, this is what Metal attempts to say, as before he can even get 2 words out, Sigma and Mecha embrace their lost brother, welcoming him home, and assuring him that they do not blame him for the actions of the Metal Commander, and never did. In a voice of deepest gratitude, Metal thanks them for this, unsure what else to say. Thankfully, Mecha is there to help him once again, asking who it is that his brother has brought with him. Fondly, Metal introduces the trio to Emerl, explaining everything that he's been up to since they last met, with the Scrapniks immediately taking a shine to the Gizoid, stating that as Metal's son, he is a welcome addition to their family. Naturally, this delights Emerl, who is all too eager to get to know his new uncles and receive a tour of his new home, with him following Sigma and Scrap as they lead the way. When it is just the two of them, Mecha asks Metal if he would like to come too, though with the hint of a smile to his tone, he declines, instead choosing to watch. Nodding his understanding, Mecha begins following after the others, though not before telling his brother that if he needs him, he need only call. Now it is Metal's turn to nod, though in truth, he knows that he will not need anything, as he already has everything he needs now that he is finally home and among his family once again. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.